Nazi Germany did not lose the war because it lacked technology. They lost because when these machines finally appeared, the war was no longer willing to wait for them. From 1943 onward, the course of the war stopped moving in Germany's favor. Air superiority was lost, industrial production was disrupted, and it was precisely at that moment that Germany's most advanced technologies began to emerge. Over the skies of Europe, the Luftwaffe gradually lost control of the air. The fighter squadrons that had dominated the early years of the war no longer had the numbers to maintain continuous presence. Meanwhile, Allied aircraft appeared in ever-growing formations. They flew higher, farther, and returned over German territory wave after wave, often with little effective opposition. When the skies were no longer theirs, Germany lost not only military advantage, but also the ability to protect its own homeland. On the ground, the war shifted toward Germany's industrial heartland. Factories were bombed repeatedly. Production lines were forced to relocate, disperse, or shut down entirely. Weapons were no longer produced according to long-term strategic planning, but merely to sustain survival. Technology still existed on drawing boards and in laboratories, but industry could no longer keep pace with the war. In the final phase of the conflict, Germany introduced and developed a wide range of highly advanced military systems, from jet aircraft and heavy tanks to missiles and guided weapons. What follows are the machines that Germany produced or tested during this period. As the war approached its end, Germany placed its hopes on machines never before seen on the battlefield. The Me-262 streaked across the sky at speeds no opponent could match, yet behind that superiority were engines that degraded rapidly and pilots with too little time to master them. The He-162 was born in haste, a last attempt to fill the skies, but that urgency made it fragile and dangerous. The R-234 opened the era of jet-powered bombers, flying so fast it was nearly impossible to intercept, yet its numbers were too few to matter beyond brief appearances. On the drawing board, the Ta-183 promised a completely new future for air combat, but the war ended before that future could ever take flight. And finally, the Me-163, faster than the limits of safety itself, turned every mission into a deadly gamble because of its volatile fuel. 5 machines, 5 different paths, but all shared the same fate. They arrived when Germany no longer had the time to wait for a technological miracle. The Tiger II was designed as a symbol of power, with armor and firepower capable of overpowering any opponent head-on. Yet its immense weight caused extreme fuel consumption and frequent mechanical failures, severely limiting its practical deployment. The Jagdtiger continued this philosophy of extreme firepower, mounting the most powerful gun Germany fielded, but its lack of mobility and heavy dependence on logistics quickly turned it into a burden once supply lines weakened. The Panther Ausf-G, despite being the most refined version of the Panther series, could not escape the effects of rushed production and declining quality control in the war's final months. At the project level, the E-50 and E-75 were intended to simplify production and maintenance, offering a more sustainable direction for Germany's armored forces, but the war ended before these designs could leave the drawing board. The Maus went further than all of them, embodying the ambition of creating an almost invulnerable tank, yet its extreme weight made it entirely impractical under real logistical conditions. In the realm of long-range weapons, the V-1 allowed Germany to strike distant targets at relatively low cost, but limited accuracy meant its effect was largely psychological. The V-2 represented a technological leap far ahead of its time, yet its high cost and low tactical effectiveness prevented it from having decisive impact. The Wasserfall was developed to intercept strategic bomber formations, but its technical complexity kept it from progressing beyond the experimental stage. Guided weapons, such as the HS-293 and Fritz-X, demonstrated remarkable precision, but their reliance on ideal combat conditions and highly trained personnel limited widespread deployment. Even critical support systems, such as the Jumo 004 jet engine, the air defense radar network, and the dispersed factory system, began to fail due to shortages of fuel, components, and quality control. In the end, the problem was not that Germany lacked technology, but that each machine emerged within a system that no longer had the capacity to operate it at its designed potential.